Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Loan Officer Wealth Podcast. We are here today with Justin Konikow. Justin, thank you for being on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I definitely appreciate it.
Right on. Excellent. Well, before we dive into all of the fantastic stuff we're going to talk about today, would you mind giving us a background as to how you got started in the business and how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, definitely. My background is actually sales and marketing. I was in hospitality for close to a decade and very big on customer service. Met my wife, who's an incredible businesswoman, and we were always looking for something to do for ourselves. She was in the automotive industry, again, customer service, and we both grew up with parents that built businesses from the ground up. We kept looking for something for ourselves. Hospitality was a natural entryway, so we actually were in negotiations with a couple of AAA franchises. She's got her MBA from the Richard Ivey School of Business. I'm the marketing and branding sales guy. So they loved us and they wanted us to take over two large franchises in the local area, take ownership of them, and that was going to be our future. Fun fact about my wife, though, she was actually licensed as a realtor for 7 years before I met her. And she had mentioned real estate a number of times. And it's funny, I had a guttural reaction to it because I didn't think a lot of the industry. And my exact words was, I didn't want to be a grease ball on a golf course. I'm not interested in it. I like buying real estate and investing in real estate, but not for me. Lo and behold, she kind of tricked me into getting my license. We decided to go away from the hospitality industry because I also lived that life for a long time and it's difficult to raise a family. It's wear and tear. And ultimately, especially in the franchise world, you work for somebody else. So every 7 to 10 years, they're asking you to invest, $250,000 and rebrand and renegotiate your contracts every 10 to 20 years. And we wanted something that we can own ourselves. So we got into the real estate business. I worked for a big box brand, and really my approach was content driven. It wasn't anything like the real estate industry was back in 2012. And, she was really big on the systems and operations side. And we just didn't find a fit for what we were looking for to serve our needs with how we wanted to approach the business, because we really wanted to be like lawyers, CPAs, high level service, and very big walls around who we work with. We didn't want to be somebody that was on every bus sign or every billboard in the city. And we really wanted to be very specific about how we worked. Lo and behold, we worked for that box brand for 2 years. She got her broker's license. We opened up our own little shop, and then we hired a VA, then we hired an agent, and we kept kind of expanding based on our business. And we went from being a solo agent or solo agent team to now we're a team of 28. We cover all of Southwestern Ontario, Canada. London, Ontario is kind of the hub of that. A couple unique aspects about our brokerage. One, we own Prime Real Estate Brokerage outright, and it's not a brokerage. And I'm saying that because we don't recruit. We're not in the agent recruitment business. We have a waiting list of about 35 people. We're very much that company that I said we were. We're in the business of marketing and selling real estate. I'm an agent that's in production myself. And the team underneath me, it's like a Navy SEAL team that does every aspect of real estate. So also very unique to the industry is we do residential, commercial investments, land development, agricultural. We do investment properties as well, and recreational. And we do that by finding experts and aligning with those experts within the system. And I guess the last piece is we also opened a production company and an agency to serve the real estate brokerage and some other businesses that are kind of aligned with us in different aspects. So that's the long and skinny of it.
That is amazing. Well, congratulations on the growth. That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
So the core of your business, and you kind of alluded to it, but you're hiring specialists in each area. But I'm interested in how your growth pattern went from being, okay, we're in the business, we're going to grow this business together. It's the two of you. How did you make your first expansion into, okay, we're going to bring somebody onto the team? We're going to hire, were you looking to hire for deficiencies? Were you looking to grow into new marketplaces? What was the reason behind that expansion and how did you approach it?
So initially it just came because we had too much business coming our way, right? Like we're very big on creating attraction type business. So people were calling us to work with them. And when I felt like balls were getting dropped or I wasn't getting back to people as quickly as I wanted to, it was very much, hey, we got to fill that gap. Let's find somebody to work with investors with me so that I can focus on the commercial stuff. Once that was done and the commercial stuff started rolling in, it was okay, we need somebody on the commercial side. We started doing some really good mandates there. Awesome. Let's tackle the residential again. And then let's go to St. Thomas. Let's look at Grand Bend. Let's look at London. Let's look at Port Stanley. We would only expand based on when we knew we had business to execute on. It wasn't, let's go into this market and let's start fresh. It was really, let's work the database that we actually have until we have so much business that we need a partner to help us with that. And where we refined the process a lot in the last, call it 5 years, and we're getting clearer on who the people are that we're actually looking to attract. Because early on, it was, let's just fill the seat. I can coach anybody, I can get them to where they need to be. But we weren't necessarily super clear with them as to, well, here's what we're all about. Here's our core values. Here's the expectations. Here's the standards you need to hit. We'll provide the leadership, but it needs to be a give and take. It was very much just like, hey, yeah, you look awesome. You have a great social profile. Come sit down. And then we realized that it wasn't a fit, right? But I think this is just a lesson to anybody out there. It's not a negative to go through that period of time and have relationships come and go and get closer to that avatar. I think it's actually necessary for you to realize who you are and who you should be working with versus who you shouldn't be working with. And that's the stage right now, is we're very clear on what 2023 looks like and what Prime 3.0 looks like, I guess.
That's amazing. So you touched on the database, and we were working our database, loving on the database, and that's where the majority of the business was coming from in order to fuel that growth. So can you talk a little bit about how you approach database marketing, your core values when it comes to that, and what that looks like?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it starts first with like creating a database, right? So you need to actually have people in the database. We filled that funnel with content marketing. So I was inspired by Gary Vee back in 2013. I think he started Daily V. So I started the Closers Daily at the time. You can still look up the Closers Daily hashtag on Instagram and see my videos. And this was short form content in 2013, before Reels or TikTok or any of that stuff was around. I actually think it messed up my algorithm quite a bit because I was posting a video a day back then. But just the consistency of that really started making the phone ring, because people just knew inherently, if they looked at me, they thought real estate, because I was always talking about it. I was always in their feeds, and there's just so much content out there about it that, I was top of mind. So then it was creating a system to get them into a database. Back then it was super clunky. I used, I think, Top Producer. I bounced around a few different CRMs. Now I use Follow Up Boss, and I actually treat my CRM as one of the most key components of my entire business. So we recently spent about 6 months working through, what does our database look like? What are the key components of it? For people that are newer to it, it's really simple. It's name, phone number, email. Those are the three critical things you want to capture. The next thing I'd say is you want to capture what stage the prospect is at. So we spent a lot of time working through our stages, which could be, currently an active client, currently a client under contract, a past client. It could be a dead lead, somebody that hasn't responded in 2 years. It could be a lead, somebody I haven't talked to, a hot prospect, somebody I should talk to once a week, or it could be somebody I need to nurture and talk to once a month, right? So once you establish the stages, then I would say you compartmentalize based on tags. So because we do residential commercial investing, I could have 3 tags: residential commercial investing. So if I find a great investment property, I can pull my database, pull everybody that's tagged as an investor, and then hit them with the property. Say it's a nurture stage, I can pull everybody that I'm nurturing and say, hey, check out this property on 123 Main Street. What do you think? I'm going to find out very quickly who is now a hot prospect or an active buyer, move them to that qualification process. And then the last key component of a CRM is having something to help you manage your pipeline. So once you have all of that set up properly, I think the next key thing is making sure that you understand, are they thinking of buying? Are they somebody you need to set an appointment with? Are they somebody that is under buyer contract and you should be finding properties for? So on and so forth, right? But I think it really starts with filling your database, working through it, and then spending time going back and reviewing your system and just making adjustments as you go.
Totally. And when you were building the database, and still today, do you have an offer that you give to people, or is it just, hey, sign up on my email list, you'll get information from me? Or have you crafted something that you're kind of known for in the industry that people can sign up for to incentivize them to come on the list?
Yeah, to me, the content is the offer most of the time. I truly believe people are smart. And if you give them an insane amount of value, they're naturally going to be drawn to you. So the majority of people that get added to our database, they come from either referral pipelines I've built, so relationships where they're like, hey, Justin's my guy in the city. Anybody, loan officers in the States, you probably know people that are moving to Canada. Like, you should think about me and say, hey, Justin, I need somebody in such and such an area. Maybe I cover that territory, or maybe somebody I know does. Awesome. That pipeline's set up. I don't necessarily have to give anything of value because I have other people that are helping me bring those people in. So to me, I think the value starts with the content. Now, that with an asterisk, for cold business and people that don't know me and are outside of my referral pipeline, I do have some lead magnets that I use. And they came from content. So I did a video, 5 tips for buyers that are looking to purchase a new home, explaining to them what it means when you go to the builder direct and how that actually works. And it also explains how upgrades work, and it gives them a ton of value. And I could run that as, say, a lead ad on Facebook, give them the PDF, and then get them in my database that way, and then work the database to kind of move them along the stages. The last piece that I'd say in terms of value is this. So like, as much as I have consumer facing stuff and lead magnets for people looking to buy new homes, the reason I take time to do podcasts like this, I was you when I started my podcast. So I know what it's like to go through and try to put guests and get excited about doing these things. So like, it's important to you, but at the same time, like I said, all the other people, by giving agent and industry facing content, that referral network is ultra, ultra, ultra powerful.
I cannot agree more. I mean, we focus like in the mortgage space, what we do, and we do this for brokerages as well on the real estate side of things, but we get qualified lists of realtors basically, and we call out on behalf of the loan officer, and we book an average of 5 networking appointments a day. And it doesn't take very long until our clients are like, you know what? I'm good. I can't take any more appointments. It's all about your referral network. And so when you bring somebody in, like, let's focus on the investor side of the business as well. When you're developing your content plan, are you going out and saying, okay, this month I'm going to focus on investors and I'm just going to do investor content to try and bring that in? Or is it more fluid where you feel a message and you're like, okay, I'm just going to create this content, and it could be for anybody. It just depends on when you're creating it.
So in the beginning, no, it was just chaos, right? And a lot of my old posts, I mean, they covered everything, but they covered nothing, right? So I didn't really have a niche, and you didn't know if you were going to see me doing a handstand or paddleboarding, fishing, or talking about real estate. As I started understanding how the platforms worked a little bit more, I did get more concise, and I was like, okay, I cover real estate and media. Those are the 2 things I understand. That's what I'm going to talk about. A lot of the media content is on my personal channels. A lot of the real estate content is on my Prime channel, the real estate side. When I then started realizing my competition, for example, would use that against me and say, look, all he does is sell properties in London. Meanwhile, I'm doing a ton of business in Grand Bend and Port Stanley. I sat down and I mapped out a content strategy that I was like, okay, I do residential, commercial estate, investments, and let's say land development and farms. Those are my like 5 buckets. I need to rotate these posts so that if I look at my feed, I don't just see residential in every single post, because when I go to work with somebody on the commercial side, they're going to Google me and they're going to look at my Instagram right away. So I need to have a balanced view. And then I started looking at my territories, because we cover such a large territory. I need people to feel like I'm everywhere. So then I looked at like London, St. Thomas, Port Stanley, Grand Bend. I looked at Sarnia, all the different markets. And then I would basically take those 2 layers and be like, all right, here's my 5 buckets of types of real estate we sell, 5 areas that we sell them. 5 times 5, that's 25 posts. Make sure that we're rotating through that. So in the beginning, it was very strategic to like map it out. And then it became very intuitive. So like after I did it for a longer period of time, I didn't have to start checking the map anymore. Just like when you're building a new habit and you're like, I want to post 3 times a day on TikTok. Maybe you set a reminder for yourself in your phone. But once you realize that you're just doing it and you don't need the reminder, you can take the crutch away. But I think sometimes it's good to build a framework for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I think one of the things that a lot of our listeners struggle with, and we get all of the time, is people don't know how to get started with content. So you've been doing it forever, but do you remember and can you relate back to somebody who's newer to content? They know the business inside and out, but they're newer to content. How do they get started? If you were to restart today in today's marketplace, what platform would you be on and what type of content would you create?
If I was starting over, what I'd probably be doing right now is I'd probably use, of all things, Instagram. I know TikTok's like the hot commodity right now, but I think it's a little bit more complex from a UI perspective for somebody that's newer to content creation. And here's the exact pattern that I would do is I would use Instagram stories, and every 2 hours I'd post what I'm doing, where I'm doing it, and who I'm doing it with. That's a very easy way to get started. I'd keep 3 prompts maybe in a notebook and be like, what am I doing? Shooting a podcast, take a photo of myself. What am I doing? Or sorry, who am I doing it with? I'd tag you in the post, and that would give me another piece of content and maybe some context to why I'm doing it, right? Yeah. Did you know that me shooting this podcast would benefit you, Mr. Seller, because I have a larger network now because of the people that are going to see me on this podcast, so on and so forth. So I would start with stories for 2 reasons. One, the consistency aspect of it. So even if I did 2 or 3 stories a day, start building up a cadence and a habit, then it's throwaway content because I never have to look at it again. After 24 hours, it's gone. So I'm
Yeah.
not going to judge myself and rewatch my content, because I think most people, the biggest mistake they make is they overanalyze themselves. Did I sound stupid? I don't know what I'm talking about. I didn't look good on camera. My hair looked out like I haven't had a haircut in 2 weeks. Wearing a hat. It is what it is, right? They start realizing that like you're not the star, right? The
Yeah.
person watching it is the hero of the content. And then I would start thinking more about what that looks like. What I wish I would have started a lot earlier is YouTube. And for your viewers, anybody that wants to go down this rabbit hole, my YouTube channel is probably the one place that I started the latest, but I'm putting the most effort into. And I break down a lot of what I'm talking about here more in depth. And in the 1 year that I've been spending working on my YouTube channels, I have seen more growth than I have on my large Instagram account or my big Clubhouse account. Like, it's YouTube to me is going to be the future. It's where I'm putting a lot of my eggs. I'm very bullish on LinkedIn and Twitter right now. I think both of those spaces have a huge upside. But if it's just straight content creation, video creation, I think Instagram's a really easy place to start.
Cool. That's great, great advice. And so, Justin, just to give reference to the business, roughly how much of your lead generation and the customers that you generate come from paid advertising? How much of it is coming from the media brand? Like, if you were to break down where your customers come from, what does that breakdown look like?
I would say we attract probably a good 60 to 70% of our business. Some of them are like, they're linked between each other. Like, our referral networks are watching our content because I speak and I do things for our, say, investment network all the time. So people that are in that network, it's like the digital bus sign where they get to see me on a regular basis. When it's time to invest in London, they already know there. I'll pay a referral out on that anyways, even if my media content attracted it, because it's all one and the same. I would say, like, in terms of cold lead generation conversions to sales, 20%, maybe 15%, just because of the nature of online leads. It's oversaturated. The same leads are getting sold to 1,000 different people. The quality of online leads, they want cashbacks, they want discounts, and we're just not the people for that, right? But it's a numbers game, and I do think that having all that data, and we have a massive database, those leads over time end up falling into our core audience or don't. And I still think that there's a ton of value in understanding how to market to people that don't know who you are, not just strictly rely on the fact that you can attract business. I think you got to be a ninja at both.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And I think one of the things in the real estate and the mortgage industry is that there's so many great people out there teaching online marketing and teaching sales and all of those wonderful things. And the majority of those trainers are speaking about other industries, and we're taking that and we're layering it onto the mortgage and the real estate business. And what a lot of people don't understand is that people shop for a home completely different than they shop for pretty much everything else that they buy. So when you take a look at marketing strategies that you're getting from, say, like a ClickFunnels or from a Gary Vee or that sort of thing, you've got to understand that the buying mindset on a purchase is really time independent, because there's so many different factors that go into that person finding the right house and actually making that deal. And I think everybody in our industry is like, I want to buy a lead, I want it to close in 30 to 60 days, and I want to get paid. And that's like my mindset around the thing. Whereas it's so refreshing to hear your perspective of, I'm going to build an audience, I'm going to create content every day, I'm just going to stay focused on the important work and grow it over time, because you don't know when that person is going to pop out of that database or pop out of that content. But when the time is right, it's more important to be there than to be working on the conversion of that lead.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think the most powerful thing I've ever seen is what our past clients are able to do for our business. So if somebody told you could never have another lead, how much would that change how you treat your past clients? Would you put more effort into your newsletter? Would you put more effort into talking to them on a regular basis, or remembering their birthdays, or having parties, or just saying hi to them like they're your friends? And I think, like, our past clients, I mean, some of them, this one client bought 9 properties with me in about a year and a half, referred 7 of his family members to us. Another one had 14 siblings. We did deals for half of her family. Like, that's the type of business I want, because then I've got, the super fans and the people that really, they believe in us, supporting our success. And also we praise them in a lot of our marketing, that they're the reason that we are where we are. And it allows us to just get really honed in and good at our craft. And people will put their hand up when it's time. And I think we've gone from a couple industry revolutions where we used to be, You go work in a factory until you can get to a manager, and then you retire and get your pension. Then you can go to school, then you can skip over to higher management, that your pension, you retire. Now the world is a lot more fluid. I think we're getting into a decentralized age of information as a whole. Consumers have access to the MLS. And here's the core thing, regardless of if you're in mortgages or real estate, consumers are going to have access to all the data that we have right now. They pretty much do, even though we like to pretend that they don't. You need to realize that if your value proposition is nothing but giving them the same data that you're reading, you're going to be out of a job in 10 years. I'd say maybe even 5. Yeah. I think the future is us being able to interpret that data for them so they don't have to. It's us giving them a strategy so they don't have to think about it. And more than anything, establishing a trusting relationship so they feel they can call their sister and say, hey, call Justin, he's got you. I know he will fight for you. And the money just comes as a result of the work that you do. Not the money in the transaction isn't the end game. And I think that's where a lot of agents go wrong. And the last thing I'll say is we just went through a bull market, and you can succeed in any type of business in a bull market. Now we're going to see whose business really survives.
That's it. When the tide goes out, you see who's got shorts on.
Yes, very true.
So talking about the database portion of things. So we have a service at Connection Incorporated where we actually call loan officers and realtors, past clients, and start that relationship. We generate repeat business referrals and 5-star reviews on Google. And the reason why we deliver that service is because we see most people in the industry, the greatest asset that they have is their database, and yet they don't call. And one of the things that I get asked all of the time is, why should I call my database when I don't have anything to talk to them about? It's going to be weird if I call my past customer database and just be like, hey, what's going on? So how would you answer that question? And what does that look like in your business?
Yeah, it's a lie. Like, anybody that says they don't have something to tell their client shouldn't be in the job that they're in, because there's always something to tell your client. Even if me telling you that we didn't have any showings, that's something to tell you. Yep. Right now, what did I just say? I said, what's the interpretation of that data? Hey, we didn't have any showings, but also I touched base with the other 7 agents that were listing properties, and nobody's having showings. I think buyers are stepping back because they're waiting for the next interest rate hike. I don't think a price reduction is the best thing for you right now, because you could reduce till you're blue in the face. It doesn't mean the buyers are going to pull the trigger. I think I got to work my butt off, generate some new activity, and let's reassess in a week. How much better do you feel about that conversation than me just texting you, sorry, we didn't have any showings?
Yep.
Like, you don't need me to tell you didn't have any showings. You could figure that out yourself with the data. And, past clients, for example, I think the other reason people make a mistake not calling them is they think that it's a business transaction. They think it's, hey, I'm calling you just to say, do you want to know what the home value of your house is? You ready to buy another house yet? Like, I never call my clients and say that. I'll text them and be like, hey, I was just driving by your house thinking of you guys. How's the kid? Right. Yep. Or I know you guys just got back from your honeymoon. What's going on? Like, we should catch up. Let's grab a bite to eat. Or there's always something to talk about if you genuinely care about the people that you're talking about. And if you really want to get, a little bit more intentional with this, go on their Instagram before you call them. Have your database open, have their Instagram up, and say, hey, I saw that post that you put up about XYZ. I thought it was hilarious. Make sure that it's genuine and authentic and you actually believe in what you're saying. But it's such an excuse that you make to yourself, saying you don't have anything to talk to them about. No different than when you don't want to hit that snooze button and get up. Like, you're having that internal conversation with yourself. It's the same thing with call reluctance.
Yep. No, 100%. And so I'm interested with the amount of volume that you do. You mentioned, like, get on their Instagram, get on their Facebook, get connected with them. And I'm interested in how many of the conversations that you and your team are having with your clients are now happening through DM and through those primary communication channels.
A lot of them. So, I mean, to me, the phone call is irreplaceable. Text message is irreplaceable because it's a direct connection. We do an email newsletter that's bulk. That works very, very well. But here's a hack that I've been sharing for the past couple months. And I thought about it. I'm like, I want Instagram to understand who my clients are and make sure that they see me on a more regular basis. So after we're done this podcast, I'm going to go pull you up on IG because I don't see your content as much as I want to. And then I'll probably send you a DM. And then as long as we keep communicating there, guess what? Your stuff's going to pop up. I'm going to support you. My stuff will pop up. You'll support me. You'll be top of mind. If a referral comes in your territory, we have a discussion about it. Like, that's the reality of it. And I do that here with developers and people that I genuinely love. So like, people will pop up in my database. My past clients, I try and touch them every 120 days. That doesn't mean that I call them every 120 days. It means I think about them every 120 days and I try and thoughtfully interact with them so they stay on my radar. So I'll go to their Instagram or their Twitter accounts and I'll start a conversation with them. So I signal to these social media apps that are multi-billion-dollar companies that, hey, I want to see more of Greg's stuff. We need to chat more often. And then all of a sudden his stuff pops up and stories pop up. We're DMing. I almost use it as a replacement for my actual iPhone in many instances.
Yep. 100%. Absolutely. Now, another area that you've just absolutely crushed it in is being wide. There are so many people that can't go into multiple niches successfully. They just end up being so generic that they're nothing to anyone. And so your brand, is it more about your hiring strategy of bringing the right people in and then supporting them and giving them a voice and giving them training? Or is it your content going out and then you almost like funneling that volume that you produce into those channels where you've got the people to support you?
I think it actually starts with the operations manual first, right? And like, how do we handle residential clients? How do we handle investment clients? How do we handle farm clients? And, what's the service delivery standards we're providing them? What's the benefit that they get working with Prime? Because then you have a very clear offering. Then it's the messaging, right? So then we're advertising it to the public. And then as they come in, then it's to the agents and the training of like, this is what we need to be providing. So if it's an investor is expecting you to interpret deals for them. Why is that duplex an opportunity? It looks like it's negative cash flow, $1,000 a month. Is it legal? Could you get the rents up? What would that renovation cost? Like the service offering for the investor is very simplified based on what their needs are. The service offering for a commercial tenant or a land developer, they're all very different. And I think we're very specific. We're very macro in terms of how we operate. We're the best at branding, marketing, and sales and customer service. And then we niche down based on each offering. And, even to the point where I said no to a client today, like we're going to show them one specific site. If that doesn't work for them, they're not somebody that we want to work with directly because they don't fall into that one core competency. I'll refer that out to somebody else. So also by saying no, you'll be able to hone in on who you should be working with.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Justin, thank you for being so generous with your time today. Where do people go to find out more about you, about the brand, about the business? If there's mortgage professionals listening to this that want to work with a professional real estate team like yours, where do people go?
Justin Konikow, so Konikow on YouTube would be the number one place where you're actually going to get most of the insights. If you go to justinkonikow.com/resources, I have a bunch of free PDFs and tools that I've kind of built over the years. And then if you want to reach me directly, I'd say Twitter or Instagram are the two best places to find me, and LinkedIn. So yeah, I am everywhere right now.
That's amazing. Awesome. Well, all of that will be in the show notes to all of our listeners. Don't forget to head on over to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review so that we can get more great guests like Justin on the show. And if you're watching this on social media, make sure you leave us a comment with your number one takeaway from today's episode, and make sure you like and share this information.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. You have a great day.
Thanks, Justin. You too.